You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
This is the podcast making, public transit taking, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, Tim the Nerd, welcoming you to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. Thank you for starting your week off with us. Sitting next to me, we have the beautiful, the vivacious, the effervescent, the lovely, the greatest legal mind in the Pacific Northwest, Professor Aubrey. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great, Tim the Nerd. I'm just really great. Having a great day. It's really hot here in Portland.
Oh, yeah, that's why we will put the disclaimer up. If you hear a low whirring in the background, that is our air conditioner. We do value our comfort here because it's one of the few times in Portland that it's going to reach triple digits.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 104 degrees tomorrow.
Yeah, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things isn't that bad compared to other places in the country, but when you have a group of people that live here that are basically used to, like, I think I told you, like, you know, my reaction watching the weather report the first day I was in Portland, Oregon. They came on, we're going to have a very, very hot, hot summery weather streak going on. It's going to be a high in the 90s. And it's just like, oh, poor babies.
Because what's the weather like in Sacramento?
Hundreds. It's routinely 3 digits. 120 was rare, but it did happen.
120?
Yeah.
How do you survive that?
You stay inside with air conditioning.
I guess.
I mean, it was a dry heat, so tolerable, but, just stepping outside, you definitely feel it, and you're instantly sweating from every pore in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of every pore in your body.
Hey, every pore in your body. That's right. Well, the big news for me this week was that I got a new bicycle, a new old bicycle.
Hooray! And
with that bicycle, I put my naked ass on it and rode in the World Naked Bike Ride.
Yeah.
Last night.
That is a Portland event.
Yes, it is.
Do you want to tell folks a little bit about it?
Well, it started in Portland. It's now worldwide. And it was a sort of like critical mass kind of ride in that it was promoting bicycle riding and safety. Sort of bicycles versus cars. And the nakedness was to symbolize the vulnerability of bike riders. That they, compared to cars, are going to get their asses kicked.
Yeah.
And so it's a sort of take over the streets ride where everybody's naked. It's that kind of Merry Pranksters kind of thing in Portland that I love. It's like, it's about a serious thing. It's about people getting killed on bicycles by cars. But it's so joyous and ridiculous and funny and...
We're going to respond to this by getting naked. Yay! That's how we solve everything in Portland.
That's right. So yeah, it goes from a different park every year. And this year they did a cool thing where people left from every corner of the park. And so there were 4 big bike rides that gradually all merged together. We also did this really cool thing at the Zombie Mall, the Lloyd Center here in Portland, where we went up the parking garage and around in a circle and back down the parking garage. So there were people going up while there were people going down. Like, it was wild.
Okay. I mean, since there's really nothing going on at Lloyd Center anymore, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't let you all, like, ride through the mall. That would have been cool.
Me too. That would have been also fun. But, there were no cops around ever.
Yeah, they're too busy having their heads up their own asses here. I mean, it is unfortunate when you have Portland Police, like, openly coming, responding to calls that they get in this town, and then telling, citizens, well, there's nothing we can do. They cut our budget, even though they didn't really cut their budget. No officers were fired. No officers were demoted or lost salary or anything like that. It's just, like other cities in America, Portland decided to take a little bit of the police budget and put it towards something else. But of course, that's going to hamper everything. So fuck the police.
Yeah, I mean, Portland cops have been on strike now for a couple of years. They don't call it that. They simply don't do anything useful for the population.
Which is unfortunate because it's their way of controlling the narrative. Because if they don't actively stop crimes like they're supposed to, then the rich entitled white people in this town will end up voting, for something down the line that will support them in their own financial interest. This town talks a big game about serving the progressive ideal, but at the end of the day, they're going to protect themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they also put a lot of pressure on law enforcement and on local government in general. Whether you're talking about the people who own businesses here, like Nike and Columbia Sportswear, or, just people who have social influence in some way, really have their way with politics in Portland, just like they do everywhere else.
Yeah, they're kind of like the seats of those rent-a-bikes that Nike provides the city of Portland, the orange ones. They're kind of like the seats after people rent those bikes for Naked Bike Ride.
Yeah, there were several people on those bikes at the Naked Bike Ride. I thought that was quite bold.
I don't like it. Hey, if it's your own personal bike, you want to ride naked on it, that's your own personal bike. You can do what you want. But renting essentially an item that is going to be used by the general public and putting your naked ass on it, if you did that but at the end of the day you had like some like wet like baby wipes or disinfectant cleaner in your bag and you wipe the seat down, good for you, no harm no foul, I'll look the other way. But plenty of people just sat their naked asses on that bike, drove it, and then parked it back in the spot and let some unsuspecting person that's just trying to get from point A to point B have their pants or whatever mingle with someone's naked ass.
I love that you're so worried about that. You're particularly queasy when it comes to any kind of bathroom business.
Call me crazy, but I just we're talking someone's naked ass. And I'm not. Most people wipe properly. I get that. It's not going to be like brown streak on the seat or anything like that, but it's still a naked ass. And it's a bike that you don't own. Why do you think it's okay to put your naked ass on something that you don't own?
Yeah, that's the weird part. I get you. I believe that it is weird that people were riding naked on those orange bikes.
Yeah.
But more because of why are you putting your naked ass on something that's had who knows what on it?
Exactly. Yeah, we have a lot of interesting people in this town, folks.
Yep.
Yep. But anyway, while you were doing that, I was hiccuping for one. I have a full belly thanks to the professor's wonderful Tennessee chili.
Tennessee chili. What'd you think of it, compared to Texas chili, for example?
I like chili with beans, so, definitely, that's what I grew up with. When my mother made chili, it was always kidney beans or, throwing that stuff on the inside. So I'm not one of those strict Texas people that, that's not chili, but, chili is also like one of those foods like pizza that you can't really get too long.
Right, that's why chili cook-offs are so good.
Yeah, it's like you can try different things. You can try wacky ingredients to put on the inside, but if you know what you're doing, those ingredients can definitely enhance it. Like the people that will mix sweet and sour type stuff together. Like extreme, like habanero, peppers, but they also put a little bit of honey in it or something like that.
Yeah, there's lots of interesting things you can do. There's white chili. There's green chili, plus your traditional red chili.
Yep.
So you could do like a white, green, and red, like Italian flag.
And think of your poor bathroom after all.
You know.
Anyway, it was really good chili, and if you anybody in the audience ever gets a chance to taste the professor's wonderful chili, you will love the results.
Thank you.
Yes, but my week mostly has been taken up by kitty affairs. Mimsy is, I think she's finally viewing me as one of her humans now. And,
oh, good.
And I definitely love that because, she's different than Annie. Annie's just like the, yay! I'm super happy. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to chew on this plastic. And, whereas Mimsy is a little more reserved, a little more calm. But, once she opens up to you, like, it's like she won't stop. She will just always want the attention, and she's great with eye contact too. Like, I've spent the weekend playing videos for her. She loves watching YouTube videos. Like, if you have a cat, just on YouTube search videos for cats, and there's going to be a plethora of selections that you can choose, whether it be videos in nature of actual birds flying around or something like that, or like fake mice that will run across the screen, and Mimsy loves interacting with those. There have been a couple of times where I played it on the TV, but I probably shouldn't with how excited she gets.
Yeah.
But she also likes TikTok videos.
Really?
Yeah, TikTok videos of cats especially. There are plenty of cat ones on there. Like, there was a funny one of this. It was two cats, a mama cat, a baby cat, and a dog. And the dog was like, the baby cat like took a swipe at the dog, like that, and the dog was like, what? And then the mother was just looking at him with the way cats do, like, yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, pal? You gonna touch my kid? It's like that. And the dog just.
Yeah, I found that dogs are really scared of cats, generally speaking, because cats do not care, and they will walk up to you and smack your nose. Yeah.
I mean, there are some great videos on TikTok of cats. Like, there was a tiger that came up, that was in a cage, but it came up next to a cat that was sitting outside of the cage, and somebody did a voiceover like, like, oh, I am a superior jungle cat, and you are this, and the house cat was just like smacked on the nose. And there was one where a cat smacked a seal on the nose, and then the seal just rolled into the water.
Yeah, they'll smack anybody in the face.
Yeah, but Mimsy had a big adventure this weekend, and I know you've witnessed it before too, so it's not the first time she's had this adventure, but I want to rid her of this urge to have this adventure, because we have a deck here, and, especially during the summer, if it's not too hot, if we have one of the windows open and the deck door open, it creates a nice breeze.
Yeah.
And the cats love, because there's a screen door there, the cats love just hanging out by the door, and there'll be times I'll put some nuts out for the crows to come, and Mimsy absolutely loves that. But apparently she's taken it upon herself to try and hop on top of the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said she successfully did it once.
Yes, she did, and I was just working away. So what do kitties do with me is that they get real excited when I get up in the morning, and, we play around and such, and then I sit down and start working. Mm-hmm. They try to bother me a few times, and I redirect them, and then they leave me alone for the rest of the day. So I typically am not paying that much attention to them while I'm working. But just all of a sudden, I heard this meow from the top of the room, and I turned around, and Mimsy was right on top of the deck door. She had jumped up off of my office chair and gotten up there. Yeah, and then she couldn't figure out how to get down.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened this time. She tried to jump up there, but didn't quite make it, and, just clattered, down to the ground, and then, did a Scooby-Doo run out, but I ended up catching her and then picking her up like, the fuck? The fuck you doing? and just the look on her face. I mean, if she could talk, it would just be like, but I wanted to get up top.
Mm-hmm. What's your problem?
Yeah, so I'm glad they're in my life. Let's put it that way. And one, I like the fact that I do have 2 cats because they can, like, imagine how much Annie would be a nuisance if it was just her.
Oh my god.
Because she wouldn't have the other cat to be able to get all of her pent-up energy out with.
Right, and having it be her mother, which her mother then has this sort of motherly control of her, right? Like,
Yep.
she will put her in her place.
Yeah, she has stopped Annie from nursing on her. That has
she?
not happened in a while. Like, I remember, like, one time I saw Annie going for a nipple, and Mimsy, like, didn't, like, react violently, but it was just like, no! And she just got up and walked away. You know, I mean, she did kind of make it annoying, like, ring, like that. Like, my nipples are tender. You're not touching them anymore. Because, yeah, like, if you get a kid breastfeeding with teeth, ow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can just imagine Annie with her overly rambunctious self.
I love that booby. But overall, it's I'm loving the journey I'm taking with them. It's a very, very start of the long, long journey that is us being in each other's lives. But, you know, Mimsy is a good cat, and Annie is a good cat. They both, they were both right for me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Yep. Well, another thing I tried to do this weekend, but more and more it's looking like not going to be able to do it as much as I thought I would, you know, and it's a topic that we've kind of talked about on the show since pretty much the very beginning, because when the show first dropped, Netflix was the king of the streaming world. They were the only people in the streaming world apart from Hulu, but Hulu wasn't quite, you know, up to, you know, Netflix's level as of yet. You know, you got Hulu if you wanted to watch, you know, current seasons of stuff, you know, but with Disney Plus dropping, with, you know, Peacock becoming a thing, with, you know, CBS All Access becoming Paramount Plus, we've had plenty of these companies put their flag out and try and get a piece of the streaming market. But more and more, what they're finding is that Netflix is kind of a shell game going on. You know, this idea that there can be one company that can have all of your entertainment needs just stored there waiting for you for one low price is a myth. People need to be paid for this stuff. And, you know, what we're looking at right now is Disney Plus, for example, for the second time in less than a year, has raised their prices. Last year, it was $6.99 for the basic plan, and then you go up from there. Then they brought the price up to $10.99. Now it's $13.99. Mm-hmm. And Hulu, Disney owns Hulu as well. They jacked the price up to Hulu for their basic plan, $17.99 a month.
Right.
And, you know, that you can bundle them together for like $25 a month. Which, you know, at that point, why am I... It is exactly like cable used to be. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I think this, you know, 5 years from now, streaming is still going to be a thing. It is something that, you know, people have determined that, you know, they like that luxury of being able to watch, you know, stuff at their leisure whenever they want to, and not just, you know, what's on type of deal. You know, having...
For real.
Yeah, having that power to be able to decide what you watch is a good thing, but, you know, just the streaming model is not going to be sustainable, and there will be casualties, and will be a number of casualties. You know, now, having said that, like I said, I don't think streaming is going to go away, but I think, you know, we're going to see more and more companies relying upon, you know, the fast streaming service, free ad-supported television like Pluto TV, Tubi, stuff like that. That'll be the primary money driver, because guess what? Commercials make the money, you know?
Yeah.
And for as much as commercials suck, you know, call me crazy, but, you know, I don't have the type of disposable income to pay for all the streaming services I want. And if that means I got to put up with a couple of commercials, as long as they're appropriately placed, you know, like if you're watching an old TV show on Pluto, as long as that commercial break comes where the commercial break originally was, I'm happy. I can be satisfied with that. But just streaming is getting to be rather expensive, and it's getting to the point to where, I mean, like, HBO Max, for instance, which became Max, is bleeding subscribers. Because, again, you jack up your prices and then you start removing tons of content just so you can save money for your own bottom line. You're kind of making it to where people are telling themselves, why should I continue to give my money? Why? And the other big problem here too is that if you do have a show that you watch that is being made by a streaming company, there's a good chance that there might not be a physical copy of that out there. Because another thing to keep in mind is if you buy a digital movie, you're not buying the movie. You're buying a license to watch it for as long as the company that made that movie allows you to have that license. It is different than buying a DVD or a Blu-ray.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and if anything, this shows the importance of having physical media, because these entertainment companies would absolutely love it if they could put the toothpaste back in the tube, because they fought tooth and nail when VCRs came about, because they thought oh no, people having VCRs is going to cut into them going to the movies. Turned out not to be the case. It made people want to go more, but what do you think? What are your thoughts on streaming services?
Well, I liked them. So I've been a subscriber to Netflix since way before it was streaming, since it was CDs that you got in the mail. And that was like the greatest intervention ever, right? You didn't have to go to the movie store. It came in the mail to you. You could send them back, get new ones. You had a whole queue. I mean, it was brilliant. Then, when they went to streaming, I just kept paying for it and was able to watch all kinds of things on it. I loved it. As more things entered the market for streaming services, though, the prices increased. It was like demand and supply did not work in this case. There were more people subscribing and prices were going up and up and up.
They're going up, and the companies are also getting ruthless when it comes to their customers. Like Disney Plus is going to start doing what Netflix is doing with the password sharing. They're going to, they will essentially excuse me again. Wonderful chili, by the way.
They're going to monitor who's watching, and
yeah, because they know who is watching what based on like certain information that your computer has to send out when you're online. Will reach them, so they will know that this is the primary device that watches it. And also too, like if you're giving your password to somebody across the country as well, it'll be easier for them to say, hey, this person's billing is in Portland, Oregon, but someone in Duluth, Minnesota is watching their account. What's going on here? When it could just be that person who owns that account just happens to be
in Duluth.
Yeah, but when you start treating your customers like criminals and start going after there has to be an adjustment here about what streaming can offer. And I think this whole idea of a streaming service essentially replacing a broadcast network, it's not sustainable. It's not going to happen. Again, I
do enjoy watching the live TV that we get on Roku, on the Roku channel. I do watch that quite a bit. So I like that option to watch the local channels.
Yeah, and honestly, it's going to take. Once your local channel, because the technology is already there, like on Peacock and Paramount Plus, you have access to your local NBC and CBS station, so they have the ability to send your local feed through one of these apps. They're just not doing it yet, and,
right?
Basically, we're at a point where we have to find out what streaming means to people, if that makes sense, because the days of paying for 3 or 4 services are over. Most people cannot really afford that,
right?
And yet people still want to be entertained. Yet we have more and more like your big box places no longer selling physical movies in their stores anymore. You could still buy stuff online, of course, but like Marvel, some of their Marvel shows, for instance, are not available in physical copies, which kind of sucks, I mean, Paramount does have a bit of the right idea because Paramount owns Pluto TV, and what they've been doing the past few years is that, like for Star Trek, for instance, if a new season of one of their new Star Trek shows is coming out, they will play the previous season on Pluto TV for free with commercials, so people can get a taste test and think, hey, I like this, maybe I will pay for, Paramount Plus for a month or two to be able to watch the new season, which, that's great. I mean, that's how you do it, but I think too that, more and more of these streamers will just not have as much because it costs money to store this stuff on hard drives and servers that you have to keep in tip-top shape because you have people all over the world trying to access it. Disney is losing over $400 million on the Disney Plus excursion. So it's unfortunate because streaming, like I said, I don't think it's going away. I just don't know exactly what the future is going to hold for it. And, what this tells me too, like I said, is the importance of physical media, Also, I think some of these price increases happening as frequently as they are will definitely cause people to not think twice about pirating.
Oh, yeah. I think so. Anytime things become too expensive, we figure out ways to make them cheap.
Yeah, and I think we all just have to accept the fact that we can't get away from commercials.
Right.
Sadly, commercials are going to be there. Now, I would love if a streaming service has to have the commercials, front load them. Have them all at the start to where you have to watch 3 or 4 commercials and then you can watch your show. That would be great.
I mean, you could just look at YouTube and know that people can deal with commercials. We can.
We can. It's just a matter of making sure they're done in appropriate spots. If it's a TV show you're watching, make sure those commercials are placed at where the original commercial break was supposed to be. And if it's a movie, do it when the scene is changing, not in the middle of dialogue, which happens on occasion on some of the free streaming apps. But beggars can't be choosers. Free is better than almost $20 a month if you wanted to pay for just 2 services,
if not more.
Yeah,
depending on the 2 services.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, this is something that I'm sure we'll talk about again because cost for streaming services affect us all, and entertainment is vital in people's everyday lives. It is extremely vital. So having a form of entertainment, no matter how rich or poor you are, is a way for you to be able. It's the equivalent of allowing your brain to go into a hot tub, really.
Yeah.
Just the whole idea of, hey, I'm going to put on some pro wrestling and lose myself for a couple of hours. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. People, we need entertainment. You think back to caveman days, people watched the fire. People can watch anything and be entertained, but we need that. It's a very human thing to want to gather around and have an experience together. Yeah.
It's just if you do it, make sure the actors and, everybody behind the scenes are being paid,
Right, especially now.
Yeah, we've talked about that in the past with the actors and the writer's strike in Hollywood, but, just some of the things that the studios want to be able to get away with. Wow. Watching actors, big name actors, show some of their residual checks from some of their big properties that you would think they would still be making a halfway decent amount of money from, and John Cusack for Say Anything, getting I don't even know why they printed it, but they printed a $0 check.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and it is what it is, and right now we're just in a big transitional period. We really are. The next 5 to 10 years will look so much different than what it is today. It's going to utilize a lot of the same tools that we are seeing, but I think more than anything, too, I think we may see studios not be as likely to not greenlight everything. Because one negative, especially of Netflix, Netflix would, greenlight, and South Park made fun of it, or was it Family Guy made fun of it? One of them made fun of it with the Coon episode on South Park.
Oh,
Yeah, how Netflix was giving money to anybody that really showed up at their door. Like, a producer that made a movie for Netflix.
Yeah.
Which is not to say he made a bad film, but you get my point. Just anybody was able to get that made, and I think the days of that happening are gone, which is sad, because the big sadness there is that a lot of these things that were getting noticed were things that in previous generations were not going to necessarily be told, and a lot of times we're talking about minority LGBTQ stories, stuff like that, because we had the option of streaming. Some of those people were given a chance to tell those stories, and some people were able to make good and tell a great story that spoke to people. But I see them being the first victims of the streaming wars kind of correcting themselves.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming days.
Exactly, and that reminds me of what our main topic is today. Thanks to you, you're the one who suggested it. We're going to be talking about our favorite blockbuster films.
Summer blockbusters in particular.
Yes, summer blockbusters.
I've actually been able to go to the movies a couple of times this summer and have seen a couple of the blockbusters. I saw Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie, and I would say the Barbie movie is like the summer movie this year. And it's a phenomenon, right? Everybody's going around in pink outfits and seeing the film multiple times, and it's very popular with teenage girls, which is great because
it's like Black Panther for white bitches, as somebody on TikTok said.
I mean, it kind of is. Like, it's very political and, very female empowerment focused.
I haven't seen that movie yet. I actually do want to see it because, we both saw Greta Gerwig's last film in theaters, Little Women. And, she's behind Lady Bird as well. The types of films that Greta Gerwig did before Barbie, just like, once she got Barbie, it's just like, what is she going to do? Because she's not the one that you hire just to, tell her what to do.
Right.
And the fact that she is now the first woman to direct a $1 billion film like this, kudos to her. And Margot Robbie as well, just, I think she had a hand in, choosing Greta Gerwig to be the director.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think she was a producer on the film as well. But if there's anybody that understands what pop culture, what, pop art can do in order to be made bigger, in order to bring pop art into the high art realm, I think it is Margot Robbie and, of course, Greta Gerwig. And the results speak for themselves. So.
Absolutely. It's a great movie.
Yes, but did you know the monkeys are inadvertently responsible for blockbusters?
How is that?
Well, the monkeys were created by a guy named Bob Rafelson and I think Bert Schneider. And those guys ended up producing a little film you may have heard of called Easy Rider.
Oh.
And Bob Rafelson directed a film you may have heard of called 5 Easy Pieces.
Oh, no, I have not heard of that.
With Jack Nicholson. But that was the start of the new Hollywood movement. And that was when studios were getting away from the old, the contract days to giving people chances to let their art shine. And that's when, people like Francis Ford Coppola first started getting noticed. That's where this little guy named Steven Spielberg, who was making films, TV films for Universal, he did an episode of... there was a show that Rod Serling did that was not The Twilight Zone, but was similar in vein. I forgot the name of it, but Spielberg directed an episode of that, and Joan Crawford was the star of that episode, and she actually helped put a good word in for him.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of somebody else too, George Lucas. So what we wanted to do is talk about our favorite blockbuster movies from a certain period of time. Generally, most folks will say that Jaws is the first blockbuster as we know it, and that came in 1975. So what the professor and I did is we went, looked through the years 1975 to 1980 and found our 5 favorite summer blockbusters. Now, what I did as well, there have been a number of movies that were released during that era that we may not talk about. Doesn't mean we don't like them, of course. It's just, like if there is a movie that we talk about many, many, many times on the show, I tried to choose something just a little different so we would have something different to talk about.
Sure.
So you're not going to hear Star Wars from me, long story short.
Me neither.
So did you want to start with your first choice?
Sure. I started with the classic Jaws because I do remember seeing that when I was a kid and being terrified. And I remember it being like a huge deal. It was definitely out in summertime. And, my folks loved it. And I might have seen it a couple of times. And it's always terrified me. I've never been able to watch it and I just get terribly scared.
It's, Spielberg is a master at getting a reaction out of people. He's one of the few directors that has dipped his toes in many different types of genres, and, horror being one of them. And, Jaws it is amazing how many scares he was able to get out of Jaws with as bumpy a road of filming as that movie was, because the shark itself they did have essentially an animatronic shark that they were going to use, but it kept on breaking down. But Spielberg, being the student of film that he was, understood he can go the Hitchcock route, and the less you see of it, the more the audience will create in their head the dangers. Like at the beginning of the film with the woman getting attacked by the shark, you didn't see the shark, you just saw her moving around, but you could just imagine what was going on underneath the water.
Yeah, it was scary.
And John Williams' music,
indeed.
I think he may have, because John Williams did the music for Lost in Space in the 60s, when he was Johnny Williams. But the theme to Jaws, he may have cribbed that from an episode of Star Trek called The Doomsday Machine.
Really?
Yeah, it's a similar type of, it's a similar type of sound as the type of deal. It's the Enterprise is being chased by this gigantic machine that can destroy planets, and it's up to the Enterprise to try and stop this. I'm surprised they haven't revisited that in the movies, because I think that could make one hell of a movie if you kind of expanded it into the 2-hour realm. But I think he cribbed the music from that.
Really?
Yeah.
I doubt he would admit that.
Well, I'm not saying he stole it. A true musician is going to be influenced by what they hear. And I don't think it was, copying it note for note and stealing. I'm not saying that. It's just I think he definitely heard it, and you could tell he was influenced. Because at the time too, we're talking, he was contemporaries with the people that were making the music for Star Trek.
Right.
So.
Interesting.
Yep.
What's your first film there, Tim?
All right, this is one I have spoken about before. I made a big lecture about picking stuff that I haven't, and then the first thing I pick is one that I've picked before. But you can't go wrong with a James Bond movie. When you think of summer blockbusters, you think of spectacle, and what better spectacle than having James Bond skiing off of a cliff, kicking off his skis while he's plummeting down the cliff, and then ripping off his parachute, and the parachute opens up and it's the Union Jack. That just, Roger Moore had a way of understanding the silliness of Bond, but still playing it as this is the coolest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, it was very sophisticated, Roger Moore.
Yeah, but this movie is the first one that Albert Broccoli, who used to produce the movies with Harry Saltzman, did on his own. Harry Saltzman was bad with money, and so had to sell his stakes in the Bond franchise. But this is the movie that gave us one of the best Bond songs, Nobody Does It Better, from Carly Simon. Just overall, from first frame to last, this is Roger Moore's best outing as Bond. And if you have a top 5 list of best Bond movies ever, Spy Who Loved Me is going to be in it. Not necessarily number 1, but in the top 5.
Nice. Yeah. I agree. I don't like the Roger Moore movies as much as I like the Sean Connery Bond movies. But you're right, that opening scene is pretty catchy.
Indeed. What is your next choice?
My next choice is King Kong. So this was a huge summer blockbuster. I remember going to see it when it came out and just loving it so much. Like it was somewhat... there was something very exciting about, this woman being offered up to this giant gorilla. And it's Jessica Lange.
Her first movie,
and she did a great job, I think, of begging the King Kong to let her go, and just being clearly an inspiration to King Kong. And I thought as a kid, I loved it. I thought it was great, and I've seen it since, as a grown person, and I still like it.
That's good. I know Charles Grodin was in the movie. I think he was stamped into the ground by King Kong. Because I seem to remember, him doing this at one point, acting scared, ah! And then you see a big foot, slam down, and then you see, his... it's like a cartoon, like that, but... That movie did not do well at the box office. And
really?
It almost tanked Jessica Lange's career, which would have been a shame because, we've talked about it just a couple episodes past, Sweet Dreams. She wouldn't have necessarily have had that if it failed any worse than it did. But it was also produced by Dino De Laurentiis.
Who is that?
Noted film producer, kind of like an Italian Roger Corman.
Italian Roger Corman. I
mean, Roger Corman did a lot of, he did the original Little Shop of Horrors. Those type of, low-budget, cheap horror, genre films.
Oh, gotcha.
Type of deal. Funny enough, his niece ended up getting a cooking show on the Food Network.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think they do make fun of her on the South Park Cream Fraiche episode.
Yeah, they like to make fun of people in South Park. So what's your next choice?
My next choice, every time I see the opening of this movie, tears will start flowing like crazy. But these are good tears, good happy tears. And, it's a movie that opens up in a swamp.
Oh.
The Muppet movie.
The Muppet movie, of course.
What I love about Jim Henson is that while the movies and the TV shows that he made were geared towards kids, he always threw curveballs.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about in a previous episode with Phenomena. That song came from a 60s softcore porn movie, but he was able to turn it, and now people only associate it with the Muppets, really.
Yeah.
And the Muppet movie, I think, one hell of a story. Great music throughout. A lot of the song, the Rainbow Connection was written by Paul Williams. There's a movie that I think is on your list that Paul Williams was actually one of the stars in.
Really?
Yeah, and I'll tell you when we get there.
Okay.
But just from first to last, I mean, I had to rewatch this again in 2011 when the Jason Segel version of the Muppet movie came out, because that was, in a lot of ways, kind of like a sequel, directly and indirectly, to this particular film here. And just, Henson was a genius. Like, there's some stuff that he's done that, in like the 80s, for instance, like Labyrinth or whatever, that
I loved Labyrinth.
didn't work for me, but it's Henson.
The Dark Crystal.
Didn't work for me.
Oh, I love that one.
But still, Henson was a genius, and I still remember one of the best moments of 2000 was being at the Gerald R. Ford Museum. They had an exhibit. It was a traveling exhibit, so it wasn't permanent, but it was part of a traveling exhibit from the Smithsonian talking about the millennium. And one of the exhibits that they had, Bert and Ernie.
Oh,
And it was so cool. I wish that was around now when I had a cell phone, that I would have been taking a whole bunch of pictures. But Henson was a genius.
yes.
And the music in this movie is some of the best music you'll hear in a movie. So, what's your next choice?
My next choice is Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Never watched it.
Here's another that I remember going to see when I was a kid in the summertime, and I think I saw it at a drive-in movie, which is kind of creepy because you could look up in the sky and, think about UFOs and stuff. Mm-hmm. The best experience I had watching this movie was actually at what's called Devil's Tower, or Bear Lodge. According to Native Americans, it's called Bear Lodge, not Devil's Tower. Mm-hmm. But that was the place where the UFO landed, and where they had the whole setup for the UFO.
Yeah.
I watched it from the campground right next to Bear Lodge, and so it was like you could watch it and see the mountain, and then look, and there was the mountain, and it was just like the coolest thing ever. I thought it was really well acted by the guy who was in it.
Yeah, he was good. Richard Dreyfuss.
Richard Dreyfuss, yes. I think he was really great in it.
Yeah, I mean, even the movies that he's done for pure cash, he's still good in. Like, I remember he was in the remake of the Poseidon Adventure, Poseidon, in the early 2000s, and a reporter asked him, why did you do this movie? I needed the money. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, totally. And now we have more and more actors willing to say that, especially later in their lives, where they're just like, yeah, I'm just making money.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tightrope. I mean, because entertainment is still a business. It is when they're doing a job. It is a factory town. It's just the product that they're making in their factories are movies and TV shows. It's just because it is an artistic endeavor as well. I can see where people still will get upset because someone's just taking money for the sake of it. Bruce Willis in his later years, taking on a bunch of roles that people were like, why? Now, granted, we found out why, and any sort of critique I had about Bruce Willis is out the window, knowing that he did that to make sure his family had money for when he really couldn't work anymore. That's cool. But, artistic integrity, it can be, it can make you too much of a critic at times. You have to, as a fan, you have to understand that, yeah, this is just a job, and there are going to be times to where your favorite actor is just going to have to do so because it has enough zeros on the check.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I think that's fair. If you care about an actor, you're happy for them to get paid.
Indeed. I mean, so long as, it's not going against, like, their beliefs or something like that,
Sure.
But
you want people to have some integrity.
Some.
Not much, but some.
Yeah, just where it counts. But shall I go on with my next one?
Yes, what's your next one?
All right. I had the privilege of watching this movie when it was as part of a limited re-release in Grand Rapids at Studio 28.
Oh.
Yeah, it was one of the few times I actually, wonderful Shelley. One of the few times they, shelled out to actually have an older classic movie play in the theaters instead of just new ones. And this was a movie that was originally going to be directed by George Lucas. It's Apocalypse Now.
Hey, I thought about including Apocalypse Now on mine. But I decided it wasn't a very summer blockbustery, because usually summer blockbusters are like feel-good movies, that's the opposite of a feel-good movie.
Understandable. For me, I also view summer blockbusters as spectacle. And, seeing Apocalypse Now on the big screen, like the Flight of the Valkyrie scene with the helicopters going like just seeing that go on the big screen was just amazing.
Yeah.
And like my jaw at the very end dropped. Just seeing how, like, the final climactic scene where Martin Sheen's character takes care of Colonel Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando. Where the end is playing, but it's the unedited version of the end, where Morrison's talking about some stupid stuff, in the song. But he kills Kurtz, and then Martin Sheen's character comes out after he kills Kurtz, stands at the top of a staircase where Kurtz had his home, where he was leading a bunch of these people, and then the people stopped. Like, you actually saw a cow being murdered too, because these people were sacrificing it on the film, But everything stopped, and then you thought for a second, like, no, is Martin Sheen's character going to be their new leader? Fuck no, but you just got so drawn up into it, and then he just slowly drops the machete he had in his hands, walks down the stairs, walks away, gets in a boat, drives off, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. I'm glad I saw that on the big screen. I don't know if I would have had the same reaction if I saw it on the television.
Yeah, I doubt you would have, because the spectacle does get watered down on a smaller screen.
Yeah, I mean, Titanic, not my favorite movie, but I'm glad I saw it in theaters. Like, my God, being able to see all of what James Cameron did for that movie just on the big fucking screen was amazing. That's why you pay people like him the big bucks that you do, because he can put you there. And Francis Ford Coppola with Apocalypse Now, this is his best film.
Really?
In my opinion, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
All right. What is your next choice? Number 4.
Number 4 is Grease, a wonderful musical romp from, I believe, 1978 or 79, starring John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, full of some of the most wonderful songs you've ever heard, and great 50s costumes and dancing. And boy, I loved that movie when I was a kid. I must have watched it 100 times.
I remember when Olivia Newton-John came into the Apple Store in Portland.
Whoa.
Her daughter actually lives in the area. But if the person I knew helped her out, and I was the one who started it afterwards, after he helped her out and he came upstairs for his break. But I was like, hey, did you get chills? Were they multiplying? Were you losing control out there? But she was a sweet woman, a nice woman, and she was in a lot of ways one of those people that kind of like a Dolly Parton in a way, that the more you hear about her, the more you just think, what a nice person. Mm-hmm. Like the Tina Turner documentary on Max. We spent a whole segment bitching about Max, but we're going to tell you to watch Max. Talked about there were a bunch of dominoes that fell that, brought Tina Turner back into the spotlight. One of them was being a guest on an Olivia Newton-John TV special.
Really?
Because that ended up introducing Tina to Olivia's manager, Roger Davies, who became Tina's manager.
Oh.
And which started, her big
resurgence.
Company. Yep.
Cool. Well, I loved the 80s Tina, so...
There you go. And the movie in question, definitely a classic. I'm not a huge fan of it, but You're the One That I Want is on my playlist. I mean, it's a good song for a reason, folks. Even the song sung at the beginning that was written by the Bee Gees but sung by Frankie Valli, Grease is the Word. Really good song. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I have big respect for it.
Yeah, nice. I like that you appreciate it, even though it's not really your cup of tea.
Exactly. But you want to know what my cup of tea is?
What?
It's a little movie that came out in the 70s about a popular high school student by the name of Riff Randall, who had a song that she wanted to show to the Ramones. Rock and Roll High School.
Rock and Roll High School.
And this is actually produced by Roger Corman. The guy who wrote it, I believe, went on to write and direct Gremlins. And Gremlins 2. But Rock and Roll High School is like one of those movies in the 70s, kind of like a Rocky Horror Picture Show, that just shouldn't work, but does because of the passion of everyone involved.
Right.
It was originally supposed to be called Disco High, but the writers of the movie were like, you don't want to do that. Disco's dying. And, you want something that is going to last. And Rock and Roll High School was it. And just having the Ramones be the musical stars of the movie was brilliant. Counter casting, if you think about it. But it's another one of those movies that from first frame to last, I absolutely love. All the characters are two-dimensional. Let's be clear, it's not a deep movie by any means, but just you're gonna love it. And any movie that ends with a school being blown up and the Ramones singing their asses off, it's got to be great, right?
Yeah, totally.
Have you seen Rock and Roll High School?
Oh yeah, I've seen it many times.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Love it. Any thoughts on the Ramones?
I love the Ramones. I really enjoy their Greatest Hits album. And when I was a teenager, I was way into them. Mm-hmm. Partially because it was cool to be way into them. But I did like them.
Cool. Well, what is your last choice?
So my last choice is 9 to 5. 1980 movie that I remember going to when it came out in theaters. So I was, 5 or 6. And loved Dolly Parton since I was a very small child because I'm from where she's from. And just Dolly Parton, Jane Fonda, and
Lily Tomlin. From Michigan.
Who play women who work in a corporation as secretaries, essentially, and how they get ill-treated by their boss and how they ultimately get revenge. And, what a feminist triumph in 1980 that movie was. They end up hog-tying the boss. They keep him locked up in his own house for months while they run the company and do a much better job than he did. And it's just a great subversive feminist movie. Played
by the great Dabney Coleman.
Yes, Dabney Coleman is so good in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I would kind of compare him to Harvey Korman. The guy that did a lot of work with Carol Burnett and Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Just one of those perfect straight characters that every good comedy needs.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen that movie.
Oh, you should watch it.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the song growing up. My sister was a huge Dolly Parton fan, and like her mangling the Golden Girls theme song, like that. Oh.
You're so mean to your sister.
Yeah. Anyway.
What's your last one?
My last one, I had to pick something funny here. And, there were a number of funny movies released between 75 and 80. But, not every comedy necessarily translates over time. Mm-hmm. But this one, I think, is one that, for me, I can put on and still get a good laugh on. Caddyshack.
Oh, yeah.
I love it especially for Rodney Dangerfield. He says the dirtiest line in the movie, and it's not it's in his delivery and not the words. It's like he takes an old lady in his arms and goes, "Hey, how would you like to earn $14 the hard way?" And then one of his best lines in the movie is when Ted Knight's character is in the golf shop trying on hats. And Ted Knight is amazing. He's another one of those straight characters that every comedy needs. But he was putting it on, and then Rodney comes in, looks at the display model, and not that it's already on the head of the judge, and oh my God, this is for the homeless people, and blah blah blah. And then he looks at the judge. Oh, but it looks good on you. But Ted Knight, if you only know him from the Mary Tyler Moore Show as Ted Baxter, you are missing out. Like, he's one of those guys that I wish I could see more of his work, just because he was so good. Like, him playing Ted Baxter and Mary Tyler Moore, he's one of those few actors that have the ability of playing dumb while not realizing it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, his character, Ted Baxter on the show, is dumb as a doorknob, but thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And
that's the worst.
He plays it honestly, and I absolutely love that. You also have Bill Murray, one of his first films. In fact, I think this is the one that kind of kickstarted his movie career, even though he did have a couple of previous smaller movies before this. Chevy Chase, of course, even though Chevy Chase is an asshole, was in it, but a great romp from first to last. And I think the reason why this movie does last and does work so well today, just as much as it did in the 80s, hiccuping, wonderful chili, is that I think everybody can relate to that working class struggle.
Yeah.
The whole idea of the film initially was that, you're supposed to relate to the caddies in the particular movie. And, it really is a movie about class struggle. Directed by Harold Ramis. I think he even wrote the film as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, even though a lot of the work, especially Bill Murray's work, was improvised. But Bill Murray almost killed Chevy Chase in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, Bill Murray and Chevy Chase didn't get along that well. And there's a scene where Bill Murray and Chevy Chase are riding on a big riding lawnmower, but they were also fighting. And, Bill Murray, shoved him off. And Chevy Chase had a moment or two to get out of the way. Otherwise, he would have been run over by the lawnmower.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, apparently they've made up and whatnot, so, they're much more friendlier than they used to be, but Chevy Chase does have a reputation of not being easy to work with.
Yeah.
So I think there were a number of people that would have said, I wouldn't have done that, but don't put me on the jury.
Right.
But that is the end of my list here. And like I said, the choices I made, there were other more bigger name choices. I could have picked Rocky, could have picked Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back, could have picked Superman, but I felt those were too easy. Because of the fact that, we've talked about them a lot on the show, and we will continue to talk about those movies a lot, because there's more that's being added to, the story of those particular ones. But just wanted to put together something, because this is the time of year, especially when it's super hot, that if you have these movies in your collection, whether digitally or physically, this is the time of year to put the air conditioning on, put on a good movie, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just chill out in every sense of the word.
Indeed. Now, before we wrap things up, there is one topic I forgot to bring up at the start.
Uh-oh.
I got to thank my friend Lisa Chilton for bringing this to my attention, but this is about the Montgomery Riverfront Brawl.
Oh.
Montgomery, Alabama. Some are calling it the Alabama Sweet Tea Party, or the Battle of Montgomery. What happened is that it was at a marina in Alabama. This co-captain of a boat asked these white guys, the co-captain was a black guy, asked these white guys to move their boat so this riverboat could park, and the white guys started giving him shit and started trying to beat him up. And the captain like ended up throwing his hat into the air, and then before you know it, you had people swimming from the boat to the dock to help the guy. You had other people coming, and it was all these black people that just showed up out of nowhere, started beating the hell out of these white guys, and the white guys were the ones that got arrested. There was one of the black guys did get arrested as well, but he was the one that hit a woman with a folding chair, like, you know, he was in the ring at WrestleMania. You know, which you have had people come out on TikTok, you know, you shouldn't hit a woman, and like, no, you shouldn't hit a woman, but you shouldn't hit a man as well.
Right, you shouldn't hit anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it is just as illegal for you to hit a male with a chair as it is with a female. Now, having said that, I understand because of the, you know, men generally are more physically stronger than women. I mean, I do think, yeah, I'm not against, like, the court of law, you know, going a little harder on a man that does fight against a woman compared to fighting against a man, but you shouldn't have done that, period.
Right. With
the chair, you know, but what I've been liking about this is how people have, you know, especially on TikTok, have taken this as kind of as a good thing. And in terms of like black creators on TikTok are making, like, there was one that took clips of the brawl, but in the background they had the music for Good Times. And then just made it, and then had, like, you know, gave fake introductions as if it was the opening to Good Times, and then they photoshopped a chair into the picture that you see at the end of the Good Times credit. But you know, this is something that in a couple of weeks from now, people will either A, forget, or B, if this is the start of something to where minorities in this country think, hey, maybe we can give a few ass beatings, you know,
right,
in order to, you know, protect ourselves. I don't take that as a bad thing, you know, because sometimes some people do need their ass kicked if they're being belligerent, like those white people in Montgomery.
Absolutely. There are definitely people who need their ass kicked in this world.
Yeah. Now, am I going to be the one that's going to be doing the ass kicking? No. Do I endorse it or recommend it? No. Wink. But don't put me on a jury either.
For real. Me either.
Yeah, just because, you know, like, under different circumstances at a different time, especially without cameras present. I mean, because there was something interesting that happened in the news about this. There were a number of news outlets that their only caption in the headline was, black people attack a group of white people on a pier.
Whoa.
Without stating why.
Mm-hmm.
It just made it seem like the black people just decided, I'm going to start beating up white people, which was not the case at all. You know, they were provoked, and all of them were sticking up for themselves. You know, but anyway, don't have much to say about that. It wasn't going to be a topic we're going to spend 3 hours on anyway, but it makes my heart happy seeing people that, you know, that throughout time have had the shorthand, that have not had the power, finally have a little bit of power in their hands. Mm-hmm. You know, and hopefully this is a sign that, you know, something is changing in this country.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so. Like racism is not going to magically disappear. I'm not naive, but I think we can get to a point to where people are better served and better protected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so,
absolutely.
All right. Any other thoughts?
You know, I don't have many. It's gonna be super hot here, so I'm already turning my brain off, getting ready to just languish in the heat and stay in the air conditioning for a few days.
Yeah, and you're going to be here within the next week or two, traveling to Burning Man.
That's right. We'll be heading to Gerlach on the 22nd, just in
a week or so.
9 days.
So, yeah, that's something else we're going to be doing throughout the week, recording a couple of episodes to have in the bag.
Yep.
Were you thinking of maybe recording at Burning Man too?
Maybe. You know, it's always difficult for me to record in populated areas because it's like, what am I doing? And are they going to be like, what is she doing? She's crazy.
I'm so embarrassed and bashful.
Yeah, I do get embarrassed and bashful about it.
Well, even if it's one segment, that'd be cool. But anyway, we have a lot of interesting things in store for you folks at home we thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
And if you haven't done so already, if you've gotten to this point in the show and you like what you hear, tell somebody about it.
Yeah, just mention it. Write us on the internet and let us know how you started listening and how you're enjoying it.
Yeah, if you go to the Linktree link in our show description, you'll be able to find out where you can find us on social media. We are officially on Blue Sky now.
Ooh.
Yeah, I actually have an invite code too. I did send one to our friends at P&W Haunts and Homicides, but if you want one as well, I can get
I just got one today.
Oh, there you go. It's so special.
Yeah.
So, that is the another Twitter alternative, but that one is being run by the original owner of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. And then Threads, of course, we're on there. But just reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. But most importantly, too, if you like what you're hearing, the best way to support us is to tell your friends to, say, listen to this show with these two goofy people having a good time each Monday.
Yeah. Tell everybody.
That's right. Each Monday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Auf Wiedersehen. Bye-bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.